yoga and meditation and sound baths and all of that is like part of those coping skills. These services help them take a break from everything and learn these skills with a healer or an expert in that particular modality. If you're freezing, you're not being able to do your work, you're not getting enough sleep. Depression is definitely one of the biggest diagnoses. Burnout is actually a type of depression. It's just an easy way of saying it so that physicians don't feel bad that they're depressed. That's what burnout is. Your first step would be to take small breaks. The second thing to do is setting boundaries. So the biggest thing I think is the issue is water. We do not drink enough water. Water and staying hydrated is the biggest diet change you can make. Exhaustion is different. You want rest. You want your body to get enough sleep. So you want to draw boundaries. If you lead a less stressful life, your chances of getting that episode of depression are lower.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Homeostasis Podcast. This is the first episode of Homeostasis Podcast, and we have a very special guest with us today, Dr. Faryal Mallick. She is board certified, actually triple board certified psychiatrist in child and adolescent psychiatry, in addition to general psychiatry, as well as forensic psychiatry. She is currently practicing in Florida. She owns and she's the founder of FMP Mental Health Spa, and she has done a lot of research in the field of psychiatry. She has published a lot, and we are lucky to have her today with us. Welcome, Faryal. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much.
All right, so let's start by talking a little bit about your professional experience and what are you doing these days, and what is FMP Mental Health Spa and how is it helping folks?
All right. So yeah, like you said, I'm a general child and adolescent and forensic psychiatrist. I see in my private practice, which is called FMP Family Psychiatry, I see ages 4 to 64. I focus more on psychotherapy and medication as needed for mental health illnesses. And FMP Mental Health Spa is an expansion of the psychiatry practice. And it's basically a holistic approach for mental health issues. So we've got like sound baths and yoga and meditation. We have some high level massage chairs. We have stretch therapists. We've got an infrared sauna. We're doing some IV hydration therapy. Just overall helping people with holistic modalities to bring peace to their lives, because what happens is most people are taking like vacations and waiting for the next vacation to go find peace. But the idea was to create like something that they can take mini breaks during their life routine, because when you come back from the vacation, you're coming back to the same situation. I wanted to create a space where you can take a mini break, mini vacation, and come relax and go back into your life, but you're having some kind of routine where you're routinely taking care of yourself.
So that sounds like a huge project. Like, how long did it take to set you up, set up everything, and get everything going? And moving from academics, from fellowship, and seeing patients, and not worrying about the management part of it, and then to owning a practice where you're dealing with all kind of logistics, hiring and firing, and paying people and arranging for stuff. How hard it is. In addition to your medical practice, you have to be an MBA as well, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not a businesswoman, so it's been quite interesting. I think that, and I'm still like learning as I go. And I think it's important to have somebody that's a business consultant. And I'm going to have somebody come help me out as well, because we're not experts in everything. So especially not business and finance. Physicians are not good at that at all. But yeah, so basically after training, I started out with an acute inpatient psychiatric facility, and I helped them start their child and adolescent unit. And then from there, I merged into doing an adolescent residential unit. I'm their psychiatrist. I'm just contracted with them. So it's a part-time kind of thing. But I had already started my psychiatry private practice. It was initially telehealth, and then I went in person. And what I realized was that I was telling my patients, hey, go do yoga, drink more water, you need to meditate, you need to go try this. And they wouldn't do it. So that's where the idea came from, that I need to have a space where when they're coming to see me, I can just be like, hey, there's a yoga class going on. Go take the yoga class after seeing me.
Mhm.
So that was like where the idea came from. And with me, it's like interesting because I don't think everyone is like this, but when I start planning something, all my focus goes into it and I do things very quickly. I think biggest thing was finding the right spot, something that I wouldn't have to build out or do anything. And I was very lucky to find like a space which was already the way I would want it to be.
Mhm.
I think in 6 months we had our grand opening. From the time I was planning to the time we had our grand opening, it was about 6 months.
And I saw the pictures on Facebook. It looks like an amazing facility. And I don't think there's a lot of psychiatry facilities out there that are offering that kind of help, at least not in Houston. I don't know about in Florida. Do you have a lot of folks who are doing this kind of thing?
So I looked it up in the entire country because the idea was instead of having a retreat where people are going or staying, it would be like mini retreats. So I looked it up and I only found one place, and it is actually in Florida, but it's further south of me in
Mm.
Sarasota. And they were doing something similar where they had several things, but also I think their psychiatry is also a little bit more medical based, where they're doing a lot of GI testing and stuff like that, which I don't really do.
Mm.
And I don't really prescribe weird kind of vitamins or anything, and I don't plan
Yeah,
to. so,
yeah.
so, so it's a little bit different, but they have these holistic services available. I'm not sure if their psychiatrist kind of refers or not, but it's a psychiatrist's own practice.
And what
Um,
have you noticed the difference as far as the medical treatment is concerned that we are used to as professionals compared to this holistic treatment?
mhm.
What's the success rate of medical treatment alone versus everything altogether, including meditation, yoga,
Yeah.
plus other things that you are doing?
Yeah, so medication only takes you so far. It's not gonna be the 100%. Of course, there are illnesses like bipolar disorder and schizophrenia where medication is absolutely necessary, and you don't want to not be on medication. But we've got our depression and anxiety, which anxiety at the end of the day, the medicine is just putting a band-aid on it. You're not going to
Yeah.
be able to treat it unless you're doing therapy and you're learning techniques to calm yourself down, coping skills. And so the yoga and meditation and sound baths and all of that is like part of those coping skills, so you can learn those in therapy, but then you need that extra kind of help where somebody's guiding you through those. And
Mhm.
so absolutely there's a huge benefit of doing these things. Finding like relaxation and break, that's another thing we as Americans are dealing with, right? Our lives are so busy, we don't stop. And so that's like the pause in your day where you stop and you breathe and you take a break from everything else and just focus on yourself. And it's hard for people to practice that on their own. And that's why these modalities help, these services help them take a break from everything and learn these skills with a healer or an expert in that particular modality.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad. So you mentioned anxiety, and that brings me to my next question, which is everyone is dealing with some degree of anxiety in their life, especially busy professionals. If you're married, you have kids, every day is filled with anxiety. At what point you suggest people seek professional help
Mhm.
compared to just trying to deal with it on their own, maybe go on a little vacation, try to take a break from things that are causing anxiety? At what point it becomes a disease? And at what point you think it's okay, it's just part of life, you just deal with it, tough it out?
Where you want to see a psychiatrist is going to be a point where it's stopping you from functioning. So if you're freezing, you're not being able to do your work, you're not getting enough sleep, that's the point where you're like, okay, this is getting a little bit too much for me, where I'm not even feeling rested. Because when you're not resting, you're not even giving your brain a chance to heal. That's the point where you're like, okay, now like my work is being affected, my family life is being affected, I need to go see a professional. So
Yeah,
that's like the difference, right? Because there's healthy anxiety. If you don't have anxiety about a test, you're not going to study.
yeah,
So you
yeah.
need
The
to have
fight and
some
flight
amount of
response.
anxiety.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but then there's that point where you just get frozen and you're not being able to function at
yeah,
your normal level.
yeah. For married folks like me, every time you have an argument with your wife, you would say, "Why don't you go see a psychiatrist?" So, do you think everyone, at least once a year, once every couple of years, should have an evaluation with a psychiatrist to see what they're dealing with is optimal, is less optimal, is really psychotic, or it needs some kind of professional help?
I think that there's different levels. I would say marriages are interesting, right? Romantic partnerships are interesting. Anyhow, if you're in a relationship, the two
Yeah,
people are gonna argue, and that's just a very they're your best friend, but also like they know all
your
your
worst enemy.
weaknesses, so they can hit those points. So marriages are really interesting. I don't think that everyone needs to see a psychiatrist. You can start with there's so many apps out there now that help with like just meditating and relaxation techniques, and I think that would be a good point to start. The second step would be seeing a counselor or a therapist, because some of these like issues with just spouse or your kids, like where you're getting overwhelmed, can be resolved in therapy, which is why I focus so much on therapy. Seeing a therapist is like that first step before, I think that, again, when it becomes to where your work is getting affected, and
Mhm.
or you can't even speak to your partner normal, you're always
Yeah.
irritable, that's when you want to go to a psychiatrist and seek guidance of whether it is just you or it's like just the way both of you are communicating. So what you need, is it something that you need to treat for yourself, or if you need to go get help as a couple, do couples counseling.
Yeah, because these words get thrown around a lot. You're in discussion with someone, you want to prove your point, even at work or with your friends. You really believe in something, you want it done. And at some point, someone would say, oh, you are a narcissistic, or you have this kind of behavior, or someone is complaining about something, oh, you are a paranoid. Now that this vocabulary is pretty commonplace, a lot of people are using these words pretty casually. So the differentiating between just a one time thing or a personality disorder has become hard, right?
Yeah, yeah, and absolutely. And again, there's difference between having personality traits versus having an actual personality disorder, right? We all have traits. So
Yeah,
you're going to have a little bit of narcissism, you're going to have a little bit of this and that. Is it actually a narcissistic personality disorder? Not necessarily. It's just, and one of the other issues is our social media, right? We have so many people talking about mental health that are not mental health experts. And so I've had so many people come to me asking, oh, do I have autism? Am I on the spectrum? And it's just like, no, you don't. Like
yeah,
doing the entire, I was like, okay, let's do the evaluation and kind of see. And they don't. But if you want, you can get diagnosed with any disorder, right? So that's like where you want to be careful with these buzzwords, because they get thrown around a lot, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have a disorder, right?
yeah. If
Everyone.
yeah, if you get labeled, it gives you an excuse too, right? So I did this, but I got this personality disorder. So
Yeah,
you want to
absolutely.
get away from the responsibility that you have to take for your own actions. Oh, I can't help it. I just got this. I saw the psychiatrist. And then when she said that this is my diagnosis, right?
Yeah, absolutely. People are using it as an excuse. And that's another thing I've said, that you can't like write off your bad behavior and throw it on to a mental health disorder, because
Yeah. Yeah.
that's not an excuse.
So let me talk about a few other. I know if we can carry on this conversation with your expertise and with your experience, there are like 100 things we can talk about. But let me focus on some high yield things that we see in common practice in general life. And you mentioned anxiety, but I think depression is pretty common in my patients as well as generally in the population.
Mhm.
And is that still the number one problem that you are seeing in your clinic, or something else has taken over at this time?
No, depression is definitely one of the biggest diagnoses that I see. And so the issue again is that we are very busy individuals. And I haven't looked at the quite the research. Of course, it is, we as Americans are more open and there is more awareness, so we talk more about it too. I don't know if that plays a role in Americans having diagnosis of depression more or not, but definitely our lifestyle, which is our, in our society, our culture, which is very individualistic, isolates you. And so there's a lot of reasons why people are getting depressed. Of course, there's a biological genetic reason behind it, but a lot of it is situational depression. And like, it's again, that's why the whole balance and the holistic care is needed, right? Because medication is going to help lift the depression a little bit, but you still have all those stressors that are keeping you at some level of what we call dysthymia, right? So there's a depressive episode, but then there's like a level of dysthymia where you're supposed to be, this is normal, but you're down here. And that's where you always are. If you have a depressive episode, then you fall further down, right? So it's, I think that's very typical. It's more typical than it should be. and just recognizing that's what's going on and taking steps. First thing is to realize that you have dysthymia or
Yeah.
depression, right? And then go from there. But this is like the major issue. And I know one of the things, like, we're both physicians. I think one of the things is that, like, in our physician community, it's so common. And then mental health is such a taboo. If somebody is seeing a psychiatrist or a therapist, it's such a taboo. But like recognizing that, and burnout, right? We talk about burnout a lot. We just talk about it. We don't do anything about it. That's the biggest issue. But what is burnout? Burnout is actually a type of depression. It's just
Yeah.
an easy way of saying it so that physicians don't feel bad that they're depressed, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what burnout is.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're working a lot, and like your situation, whatever is going on, you're starting to get depressed, and that's what burnout is.
Yeah. So you mentioned the genetic component. Of course, that's not something we can help.
Mm-hmm.
The situational things, sometimes it's easier said than done, or get out of that situation, or leave that job, or move to a different place and get out of the relationship. But
Mm-hmm.
if you cannot change your environment, what are some of the things you would recommend people can do? You mentioned some apps, but what are the top three things that you recommend people to do to fight the burnout or fight the depression to a point where they stay functional and they're not getting worse over time? What are your top three recommendations for folks to stay away depression?
Yeah, I absolutely think that first, just the first part that you said, it's hard to say, change situations. And absolutely, a lot of people like have this like destination happiness that this will happen and then I'll be happy, whether it's like a place or, oh, I'll finish my fellowship and then I'll be happy. Simple example. But that's not what's going to change it, right? It has to come internally because you've
Mhm.
now let your mind and your body be in this depressive state for so long that you can go anywhere. Your
Mhm.
internal self is going to go with you. So the easiest first step would be to take small breaks, right? For instance, if you're at work, right, and it's overwhelming, it takes 1 or 2 minutes. There's apps, and my favorite one is Smiling Mind. It's completely free. It was like a based on a research thing that they were doing in Australia. They never charge money, so that Headspace and Calm and they all charge money, but Smiling Mind is completely free. It will always stay free. You can set a 1 or 2 minute timer on it, put your headphones, and just do a breathing exercise. Do a simple body scan for just a minute, right? 1 minute is not that long. We think that,
Yeah.
oh my God, 1 minute is big. It's not. It's very short. So you want to take that minute to just take a breath so that you're connected with your body and you can just be in the present moment. Once you do it with the app, you learn how to do it on your own. For
Mhm.
instance, when you're running around from one place to the other, now you're late for your grand rounds, right? So you get
Yeah.
there and you can't even focus, right? Doing a quick breathing exercise, you don't even now need your headphones because you've trained your body, and just doing a body check and just taking a nice few deep breaths, you'll come back to where you are and be able to pay attention. So that's just a very simple technique of just calming yourself down and taking a break from all the stress that's going on. And then the second thing that we're not great at and nobody's ever taught us to do is setting boundaries.
Yeah.
So talking about situational depression, nobody taught us this, but we need to set boundaries. We need to
Mhm.
set boundaries at work to get that work-life balance, but not only that, but like with our colleagues and our supervisors and whoever, wherever, you need to be like, no, this is like where I draw my boundary, and being okay with saying no is
Mhm.
not a bad thing. No, I can't do this. Somebody's asking you to cover some for someone, you feel obligated. No, you can't do it. Saying no is okay, right? And with spouse, with your kids, you do need space, right? If you need to go do whatever you want to do, bike ride, go hang out with your friends, I think it's okay to draw that boundary and say, I need these 2 hours for myself, and that is okay.
Mhm.
So drawing those personal boundaries, I think, will also help you deal with that situation better.
Gotcha. And then exercise, of course, is good for
Absolutely.
everything. But I see a lot of videos these days, spend a lot of time on Facebook and TikTok, and I know that's not good, but you get to see what's going on in the world around you. And people are throwing out a lot of diets, some hacks.
Mhm.
You eat this and eat that, and this is good for your mental health. And have you seen any benefits of a particular type of diet or any special foods or all these juices that detoxify your body and things like that. Have you noticed anything? Is there any evidence to support any specific diet when dealing with mental health problems or anxiety in general?
So I have my view of diet is this way. Our food is contaminated. Even though you can get the best organic stuff, it's still contaminated, right? Even if you're growing it in your backyard, because
Hmm.
we have fertilized and we have sprayed so much that you can grow it anywhere, it's contaminated.
Yeah,
So as long as you are eating a healthy, balanced diet, go back to the basics of our carbs, proteins, fats, the basic thing that we had, right? You have
yeah,
one green in your plate always. You're eating some fruits, you're getting enough
yeah.
fiber, and you're getting enough protein. And that's what you need, and healthy fats, of course. But with that, the biggest thing I think is the issue is water. We do not drink enough water, right?
Mhm.
Water and staying hydrated is the biggest diet change you can make
Oh, yeah.
because, and you're a nephrologist, right? If I remember
Well,
correctly.
I didn't know it has mental health benefits too.
So you're going to urinate all those toxins out if you're drinking enough
Enough
water.
water. Yeah,
So if your kidneys are working well, you water is your best friend, right?
yeah, yeah,
And so the rest of it, like, sure, when people are saying this is good for you and that is good for you, they're just discovering things that may have been great if you go into an Eastern society. They were already eating those things, right? And you
yeah,
just
yeah.
discovered it now. You're, oh, incorporate this, incorporate that. Just have a good, healthy diet. Just have enough fiber in your diet. Of course, movement is important. That's why exercise is so important. If
Hmm.
you're not moving around, if you're stagnant, that's also going to create like issues. You
Yeah.
won't even feel thirsty if you're not working out, really, honestly. With the smoothies and the this, drink that. Again, it's about hydration, really, honestly,
Mhm,
nothing
mhm,
else, right?
mhm.
If you're
Yeah,
not enough getting enough protein in your diet, then sure, go grab an Ensure or Boost or whatever, so you get
yeah,
enough protein in your diet. But that it's not necessarily okay. Do
yeah,
the keto thing or do that or do this, and it's going to help you feel better. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
just a normal
So
diet.
yeah, so whatever people are selling is probably not what you need. Just a general balanced diet,
Yeah.
a decent amount of water intake is okay from your
Yeah.
standpoint.
Yep.
So
Yep.
coming back to the burnout. So most people think it's the amount of work that you are doing or the number of hours that you are working. Do you agree with that, or is it to be at a place that you really don't want to be, or working for someone that you don't want to work for, or not being adequately compensated? Because Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos may have been working like 18, 20 hours a day, but they still seem pretty happy and they don't look like they're getting burnt out with all the work they're doing and the traveling and managing like 10 different companies and thousands of employees. And we work 8, 10, 12 hours a day, and our residents, fellows, and everyone is getting burnt out. Is it the place that they're working at or not being adequately compensated, or the people they're working with, or is it really the amount of work, like the number of hours, that cause the problem?
Multiple factors, right? One, we don't know how they
Yeah,
actually feel. What
yeah,
we're seeing is just a part of what we're seeing, right?
yeah,
That's one thing. But the second thing is, do you actually love what you're doing, right? Can you find joy in that? Exhaustion is different than burnout, right? So
hmm,
I work a lot too, and in just any medicine, right? It's almost traumatizing because you're seeing a lot of pain, whether it's mental pain or whether it's like physical pain, right?
yeah,
So for physicians specifically, it's a very traumatic thing that you're doing. In order to like balance that out, one thing is that are you enjoying it while you're doing it? Are you
mhm,
is it satisfactory when somebody does well after you've treated them, right? Helping people, is that making you happy? That's the first thing, right? Of course, being undercompensated is hard, but to
mhm.
shift your focus of why you got into this field, right? Is it just a means of money? Then you're probably
Yeah,
definitely not in the right field, right?
yeah,
And you got to
yeah,
go do what Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk are doing. So I think that's like a major thing, right? Shifting your focus from, was it the money that
mhm,
I was doing this for, or was it because I wanted to help people? Is it because I enjoy helping people, that brings me joy and peace? Or is it because, my family told me to become a doctor? Yeah. So
yeah,
that's, I think, is like the major thing that you want to like keep in mind, that number of hours doesn't necessarily mean that you would get burnt out or depressed, right?
Yeah.
Exhaustion is different. You want rest, you want your body to get enough sleep, so you want to draw boundaries. I work with a lot of physicians too, especially in therapy, because we don't know how to say no, and that's basically what I'm teaching them to do, is to say no,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Leave at 6. You're a pathologist, you can leave at 6. And like being able to set those boundaries where we're not able to do that. We'll stay,
Mm.
we'll cover. But if you're not taking care of yourself, how are you going to take care of all those people? And I believe strongly that when Bezos started Amazon or Elon Musk did what he did, they loved what they
Yeah.
do. Musk really, I think, loved doing the electronic and the physics and all of that stuff, which is why he created all these companies. So,
Yeah.
and it's not easy to manage stuff, but then again, you want to have the right people in your corner too. That's also important, right? Who are the people that are like managing you and supporting you? And I think
Hmm.
that also makes a huge difference.
Yeah. The social support. Yeah.
Mhm.
So let me talk about something that's not very fashionable, but coming from a Pakistani culture and coming from a place where religion plays a huge part in your upbringing, in your cultural beliefs. And as far as the mental health goes, someone would come and tell you, oh, just go pray 5 times a day or be close to God, or whatever happened to you was God's plan, and it will all be okay, and it's part of your test in this world and things like that. And then there are people here who don't believe in God, and which is how they were raised, and which is how they have come to accept their beliefs. But my question is, have you noticed any difference? Does it help you if someone is a spiritual person and they believe in a higher power, and you can say, oh, maybe some things that are happening are because of there's a bigger purpose behind it, or there's a bigger logic behind it, or just keep your belief and God will give you strength,
Mhm.
compared to someone that you are treating who only believes in the physics and the material things around them. Is there
Mhm.
a difference in the severity of the disease if you are a believing person versus a non-believing person? And is it more difficult to treat either one of these folks?
Firstly, religion is considered a protective factor. When we're
Mhm.
rating like risk factors, like
Mhm.
religion is considered a protective factor. And
See.
the reason is that, yes, you have that faith of someone else is leading this. So to answer for the first part of your question, just go pray, right? There is some power in having that faith and praying, right?
Mhm.
Every way you're praying, whether you're Muslim or Christian or whatever faith you have, right? It's literally like every single religion, the way that you pray is you're meditating. What is salah? It's meditating. You're
Yeah.
taking 5 minutes, 5 times a day to meditate, right?
Yeah.
For instance, Hindus, they do their puja, they
Yeah.
dance, they do all of that. What is that? It's all taking care of your mental health. So it's religion is basically all based on take a break for yourself, and then also having that faith that, okay, the higher being is in charge. Now,
Yeah.
as far as like atheists or non-believers are concerned, they still believe in something, whether
Mhm.
it's physics or whatever it is. It may play a little part in making depression worse, as in if you're thinking, okay, this is just the way the world or life is.
Yeah.
It's hard to come out of that mindset, but does it make like you to go have a higher risk of getting depressed? I don't think so. I don't think
Okay.
there's a risk of getting depressed, but if you are depressed, then religion may be a protective factor because you have like you're believing in something.
Yeah.
Now, most of the atheists that I have, or people that don't possibly believe in God, still believe in something, and
Mhm.
that faith still is helpful.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
interesting. It doesn't have to be organized religion, and it doesn't have to be a higher being. They'll
Mhm.
believe in something, and it's always that faith will help you.
I see. Yeah, because sometimes I believe, like sometimes I think that if you are in a bad situation in this life and you feel, oh, this is it, and I have one life, and that's terrible, and I got dealt a bad hand, and then it's gonna end, and there's nothing afterwards, then it might make you a bit more depressed compared to someone who believes, oh, there's an afterlife, I'll be in heaven, I'll have so many things to do, and it might be a bit more but it can have the opposite effect too on some people. They
Yes,
may not
I was
want.
gonna say it can go either way. If you think
Yeah,
that you're gonna have a better life after this, then you
yeah,
might. What's the
but maybe
purpose
it's
of this
like,
life? And it will
yeah,
be like more depressing being in this life. And I know atheists that actually do believe in an afterlife. Like so,
mhm,
different like people that don't believe in a higher being or in an organized religion still have different beliefs. There are people that still believe in afterlife. There are those that don't. But like
yeah,
how much if you're
mhm,
depressed,
yeah, the-
right? And it's that's just, and again we're talking about the genetic biological just kind of organic depression, not so much the situational depression,
mhm.
in this case having this depression.
And you're dealing with a lot of, so just a personal question, because
Mhm.
you're dealing with a lot of people with psychiatric issues. And like you said, even seeing general medical problems gets to you, it takes a toll on your health. But seeing all these mental health issues and dealing with anyone has a family member with depression or bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, and almost everyone has someone they
Mhm.
know who has these problems, it takes a toll on you. But for you, as someone who's dealing with this pretty much all the time,
Mhm.
does it get to you at some point, and what are you doing to fight it off? Like, how do you not get affected by what you are seeing?
Yeah, so I have my own therapist for it.
Oh, I see.
Sometimes I see my therapist twice a week because
Mm,
you have, if you're especially in mental health, but then
mm,
also a physician. I think like they used to have it to where residents be back in the day. They don't have it anymore. But like I think it's important to have like your own therapist where you're able to like go and talk about whatever is going on with you.
mhm,
That's one thing. But then also all the things that I'm offering in the mental health spa, actually I do myself. Actually, my personal trainer also offers fitness classes there. So the fitness classes, I do exercise with my trainer. I was up at 5:30 working out because that's the only time I ever have to work out. But she comes to my place and knocks on my door, so I have to be up to
wow.
do it. Hydration, drinking enough water. I'm always carrying water with me. I take the sound baths. They're exceptionally helpful. There's some science behind it, but then there's also something metaphysical going on over there that really helps bring relaxation and actually helps like you let go of any issues that come up
Mm,
with you. I normally get stretched, which I replaced massage with stretch because I found that um it actually released more muscle tension, and in
I
turn
see.
you're carrying it like where you carry your trauma all in your shoulders or you're
Yeah.
sitting down in your hips. And so the stretching, the assisted stretching really helps because somebody else is helping you stretch. It's not as effective doing it yourself, so I do that. I don't regularly get IV hydration because I'm drinking enough water. So you don't have
Mhm,
to get that if you're doing it. So all of these things, I'm meditating, I'm taking those 5 minutes break. Anything I'm
mhm,
advising to other people, I'm actually doing myself. And it has helped me
mhm.
stay balanced. And that's why
Yeah.
I created the space because I know these things are effective and I've
Well,
tried.
that's the title of our podcast, Staying Balanced. The
Yeah.
homeostasis is mostly attributed to kidneys, but I think it comes to psychiatric balance as well, where you try to maintain a balance between the good stresses and bad stresses and try to stay functional as best as you can.
Right,
So, one
right.
more question on that topic, and
Mhm.
then we will move on. How important it is to get your sleep at a stretch, because for most physicians especially, you're always on call, and when I'm on call, the week I'm on call, I'm pretty much getting 2 hours at a time, 3 hours at a time.
Mhm.
Eventually I probably get to 6 and 7 hours in 24-hour day, but
Mhm.
not at a stretch. So
Mhm.
does it matter whether you're getting interrupted sleep versus you're sleeping at a stretch as far as your mental health and sanity is concerned, or it doesn't matter as long as you're getting enough hours in?
So it's different for different people, right? For some people, they're okay with that. So it's a
Mhm.
very individual person to
Okay.
person thing. Some people will be sleeping 4 hours at night and then taking like a nap during the day, and that's their like best place and best comfort, or they function really well with that.
Mhm.
For myself personally, that was not the case, and I noticed that during my training. And so when I graduated, the one boundary I drew was I'm not going to take overnight call. I'm not going to do any overnight shifts, and I'm not going to
Mhm.
take any overnight call. So my boundary is 9:30. Even for
Mhm.
the adolescent residential that I work at, after
Mhm.
9:30 p.m., they have to call the on call. And
Yeah.
so I think that's very important that if you are a person who finds like you're not rested after that
Mhm.
broken sleep at night, that you set that boundary, right? We come back to the boundary thing.
So
You're
it's
able to,
more like a personal thing, but
yes.
it doesn't have to have a negative effect on your health in the long term, as far as the evidence is concerned, or as far as your experience is concerned.
I think just again, coming back to person, right?
Yeah.
For most people, it will have a negative effect because your brain needs to go through all the sleep cycle for it to be healed. Especially the 2 hour breaks are probably not that great because you're breaking
Yeah.
your sleep cycle and especially if it wherever you're on call for, it's a
Yeah. Yeah.
busy unit. So you want to make sure that you're not taking call too often because for most people, their
Mhm.
brains are not healing. So it is a setup for depression. It is a setup
Yeah.
for
And then
anxiety.
if you're awake at night, you're running all day on tea or coffee or some kind
Mhm.
of energy boosters. Do they also have any negative effect as far
Absolutely,
as?
you're getting dehydrated by the amount of coffee and caffeine you're taking.
Yeah.
So you're not drinking enough water now. So we come back to the hydration part of it. Coffee and tea and all of that is not hydration. It's
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
caffeine makes you dehydrated. So yeah, it does affect you, right? In that sense. Definitely want to see what if you've been taking call for
Mhm.
2 weeks and now for several days and in the week from several nights, you will probably know your level of exhaustion. And if it's
Mhm.
not working for you, the naps thing, then you know that you need to limit your call.
Have you noticed any mental health problems in folks who have been living in metropolitan crowded cities versus in the suburbs or the rural areas? The general thought being if you're in the nature, you have less stress, you're not having these taxing jobs, you probably are mentally more sound compared to someone who is in a busy, hustling city like New York or Chicago or working in high stress. Have you noticed a difference as far as where people decide to live compared to, each other?
So yes, in the sense that if you have lead a less stressful life,
Hmm.
your chances of getting that episode of depression are lower. We probably can't get rid of dysthymia, but the chances of getting depression is lower. There's something called late onset schizophrenia. Come to find out, it's not late onset per se. What happens is that if somebody has had a pretty simple stress-free life, they can pretty much, that first episode of schizophrenia gets triggered with stress. That's why a lot of people get triggered around 17, 18 age. And that's when you start have the first episode of psychosis. So some people will go through life without a big stressor and
Hmm.
not have any episodes of psychosis and just live through their life. And then all of a sudden some stressor comes and that first episode of psychosis appears, which
Hmm.
we label as late onset schizophrenia. But why is that happening? How did you
Yeah.
get through all of your life without it? It's because that stress-free life. So yes,
Hmm.
stress plays a huge role in that. So whether, again, if we bring it down to individuals, I think there are some people that just enjoy the city life and
Hmm.
that's what they enjoy, but other people that do not enjoy that. And so yes, there's individually it might be different, but if you look at a bigger scale, yeah, definitely the less stress you
Yeah.
have and the more time you spend outdoors, get oxygen, go on a walk, you're going to have like less. Yeah, it will
Hmm.
be better for you.
Yeah. And last question before we finish this session. In the next session, we're going to talk something about the children and adolescents and love and relationships. So, a little bit of a teaser for the next session in a couple of minutes. So, the last question before we end this session, I know there are individual variations, but does it matter what your socioeconomic status is? Are rich people who have money, who can afford things, who have money to deal with the monetary problems less depressed compared to people with less money and they're thinking about the next paycheck and where they're going to afford the housing and how they're going to afford their kids' education? Have you noticed any difference as far as the socioeconomic status is concerned?
Yes and no.
Like the
So
money, the typical cliche, the money cannot buy happiness. So
happiness, exactly.
what's your verdict on that?
So back in 2016, there was a study done, and I specify the year because the amount of money now versus 2016, there's a huge economic difference that in
Mhm.
9 years, everything's so much more expensive. But at that time, the research showed that once you're making $75,000 a year, above that income, there was no extra happiness that money was bringing you.
I
So
see.
I'm guessing now it's 110,000 or something because of
Inflation.
how bad like the economy is, and
Yeah.
unfortunately people's salaries haven't gone up. So yes, we
Mhm.
are seeing an uptick in depression because of that and stress. Once you reach a certain income amount, extra added happiness is rare. And then you can have all the money in the world and your family member, yourself, you can have depression, or you can have some sort of illness, schizophrenia, where it's like how much treatment is going to be completely healing. There's some treatment resistant cases that all you can go around the world to see specialists and still not get the treatment. No matter how much money you have, now you have this illness. So I
Yeah.
think that there's a certain level, and no money is ever enough. I'm sure that if you ask Elon Musk, he doesn't have no money either. So no
Yeah.
money is ever
Yeah.
enough.
Now he wants to buy OpenAI, so he needs another $100 billion to
Exactly.
to buy that. So
Exactly.
this is fascinating, and I think we can carry on this conversation forever, but we have to end our session
Mhm.
here. So I will see you in the next session. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Dr. Malik, for your time and for your expertise, and it was really an enjoyable conversation. I'll see you in the next session. Take care.
Thank you.